Hey, I'm Leela Ree.
And I'm Nick B.
And this is Dirty Roses Podcast, where two girls from the City of Roses discuss love, lust, and perception.
And we got two very different perspectives.
That's right, because my girl Nick B is a long-term habitual dater.
Oh, for real? That's what we're doing?
I mean, girl, it's facts.
Okay, you're right. And my girl Leela Ree was tied down and now newly single and don't know a thing about dating.
Dang, well, here we are taking our friends' dating stories
and having real life conversations.
Dirty Roses Podcast starts now.
Hey, I'm Leela Ree.
And I'm Nick B.
And this is Dirty Roses Podcast. As you already know, I am so excited to be here today. We've got some really amazing guests in the building. I got my dear friend, a colleague of mine, a wonderful woman out here in these streets just uplifting Black people, but even more so, a curator of some amazing health and beauty products that we call Bahia Honey. So welcome to the show, Bahia. Thank you for joining us. And on the other part here, we got her better half, or her other, I'll say other half. We don't do better or other. Their other half, the one that fills her up in her wholeness, in his wholeness. We talked about filling up with the whole people, right, Nick B? We talked about that, right? So
exactly.
We got Mr. Patrick in the building. He is the CEO founder of Glory in You Consulting. So thank you so much for joining us today. And y'all will see me. I talk with my hands, so we just gonna be all up in here. But today's episode is about safe spaces in relationships. And I think that is so important as we talk about all things that we've been talking about on Dirty Roses: love, lust, and perception, relationships, sex, all those great things. But one of the most important things is safe spaces. And as you guys know, we start every episode with a story or a scenario that led us to this topic. And Bahia, you might actually recall this scenario. So I'm going to tell the story, and then you tell me if you remember the scenario. Okay. So girl meets guy, not necessarily an intimate, close relationship on that level, but more of like they know each other through work and volunteering. And they build a good acquaintanceship. I won't say friendship because they don't really kick it outside of a lot of stuff, but in this space of working together or volunteering together, they are connected. In this acquaintanceship, the guy has sought solace in the female or the woman in this relationship. So he's always telling her about his issues. He's told her about his life struggles and his traumas, which also includes his drug use and how his sober and sobriety and all those things. So their acquaintanceship, and every time that they are connected or in the same space, it is always he is kind of unloading onto her, and she's providing him advice and some input and some freedom to talk and vent, all those things, which is a really important thing for men to have a safe space with people. And so that was what she curated for him in their relationship, which is also, again, not intimate. But from there, he took that safe space, had an issue where he relapsed, and then took away her safe space. And in that moment, he kind of was tweaking. He was kind of off kilter. She didn't know what to do because while she had been supporting him in his sobriety and all things that he's doing positive, it turned negative. And then she no longer had a safe space and had to drop him off very quickly at this place called Miracles Club, which is a place for people who are struggling with all kinds of things. And therefore their acquaintanceship was kind of severed because he no longer provided her with safety in their friendship or their acquaintanceship, and she could no longer provide that safe space because it was too traumatizing, triggering, those things. So when we talk about providing safe spaces in relationships, and it could be platonic or intimate, and mostly we're talking about intimate relationships mostly here, but what does that look like? And so as we dive into this topic, Nick B, have you ever been in a situation where you have been a safe space for somebody, you sought a safe space in somebody, it didn't work out? How did that look for you?
So I don't have too many examples of safe space in a romantic relationship, but I can honestly say that my best friends, my girlfriends, are absolutely my safe space. Outside of speaking to therapists or going to counseling sessions, if you have that core group of women or men in some cases that you just feel you can confide in, I have that in my best friends, and that goes with both men and women who are close to me, that we can talk to each other. And those are sometimes the closest relationships that I have. I mean, even over sexual ones, with the partner or something, I have closer relationships with my best friends than I think I've ever had in a partnership on that level.
Which could be why you are habitually dating.
A habitual dater, evidently. Listen, if I can get me one of these men to have that same bond, maybe I won't be habitual anymore. Jesus.
But no, okay. And so in bringing Bahia and Patrick on the show, they are a couple, and they are both very vocal and educating this in the sense of communication and healthy relationships and all those things. And they share very openly about their bouts that they have because they are both very, very strong-minded individuals. So how important is it to curate a safe space for a person that you are intimately in a relationship with?
Ladies first.
Oh, okay.
I think that what I have learned, I don't have a lot of dating experience, unlike Nick being there. I was married for a long time, a long-term marriage, and but I would say that I feel much safer and held in my current relationship.
Oh, good job, Patrick.
But in the sense that I think first I'm learning a lot more about the safety that men need. I'm learning more about that. And in reflecting on my marriage ending, I can see the need for a safe space more clearly, I think, now for men. But I will say that being seen and heard, and like I think I'm people get me wrong a lot. I smile a lot. I'm happy. I'm like 80 degrees, clear skies, always internally. And so I think that people read that as like smiles all the time, happy outside, like, and it's really who I am. So, and at the same time, I get invited to bougie stuff, and I'm not that either, so it's like, it's an interesting thing. So when someone really sees you and gets you and understands you, you feel more safe to be just yourself. I don't have to be on.
Right.
Have to be, I can just be. And I think that I feel the safest when I can just be.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think it's really important to have those things. I think the stress of trying to have your representative on all the time is just not healthy. But I do think it's important. And I think it's important for us to explore how to be safety for one another.
So you made actually a really good statement. You said that you feel seen, especially in your current relationship that you have with Patrick. So is it about finding an individual who knows how to see you, or is it about you presenting yourself in a way to be seen? Or is it a combination of both? The safe space, is it really about the right person, or is it about creating the right environment for that person?
Well, I think that we're still working on that. We've been together, a little over 2 years, right? Anyway, and I always get this wrong. I always been like, we've been together. I feel like I've been with him way longer than we have. So I'm always like 5 years, but it's not. But I think that when you're talking about being seen, if I present myself a specific way, I may think I'm being perceived a certain kind of way, and that may not be fully accurate because it's what's going on for me, what I'm projecting, what I think I'm projecting. And I think when someone really sees you, they tell you what they see, honestly and with love, so you can reflect on that and decide, like, oh, is that truly what I'm trying to put out there? And if it's not, how do I make the adjustment? Or are you just misreading what I'm putting out, right? So it's a balance, I think. And I think as you grow, if you're in a relationship where you're both interested in growth, you can figure that out.
And Patrick, so what does a safe space look like for you, and how is it important for you in the relationship?
Yeah, thanks for that question. It seemed pretty interesting, her answer, because I don't know if she necessarily answered what a safe space.
Seen and heard. Here for me.
Okay.
So we're going to get to that communication piece right there in a second. Hold on.
Yeah. Men are from Mars and women are from Venus, right? So for me, a safe space is pretty black and white, which is, me coming as my authentic self each and every time. And what that looks like will determine the outside atmosphere, pressure, meaning society, meaning work, meaning my relationship. All those things can change at any time. And so that safe space is being able to make that adjustment to those changes. So if you know that I had a bad day, then maybe being considerate to say, okay, how would you like me to accommodate you in this during this time?
Right.
would you like to talk about it, or would you just need some time to decompress, or is there something I can help you out with, or you're going to figure it out, you just need a certain level of support. So I think to answer that question in terms of a safe space, it just really depends on what he communicates during that moment and trusting that's what he needs. I think most women put themselves in a position of what a man says to them, they don't really mean. I know what you need better. So now they try to insert whatever that opinion is for him. That's not making a safe space. If he's telling you, then believe what he's saying that he needs.
I hear that a lot too, that women, we tend to assume or make assumptions or like kind of the guesswork in what a man is thinking or what a man is thinking, because we also in turn want men to be intuitive to our needs. And so we reciprocate that, and it doesn't work that way because men will tell you what they need or what they want. And we're like, but did you really need this? Or what they don't want? Right.
Yeah. And I think that is unfair for both parties.
Yeah.
Because of the fact that you feel like you're going the extra mile for him. But if he doesn't need the extra mile, then it's going to be overwhelming because he's like, all right, I just told you I just need some space. But you don't necessarily want to give him space because you want to be up under him. So now you've made it about you as opposed to about him. And again, the space is supposed to be safe because you're asking him at the time, what does he need?
Right.
So if you're taking it personal based off of his response, then now you're creating even more stress because now he has to accommodate how you're feeling about his feeling, right? And
So then
it just keeps compounding.
what do you say to the guy whose response to that is, well, you should just know how I'm feeling, thinking, and that you're just supposed to respond accordingly? Is that still a safe space, or is that now kind of crossing into some toxicity where the guesswork is applied and being clear is gone? Because I've been in that situation where the guy is absolutely not saying what he needs, and I'm just supposed to know better.
I think
Been in that?
I think that's based off of, one, how long have you guys been together and the extent of y'all conversation. Because if you've been with somebody for 5 years, right, then some of those answers should be pretty understood and well known. However, you just met the person, right, and you're asking him, what should you do? And he said, you should already know. That's an unrealistic person. So you have to know the person that you're with and vice versa. I think, and generally speaking, especially this day and age, sometimes men and women can have unrealistic expectations. One of the things Bahia and I talked about quite often is managing those expectations. That was my key with her, because I'm just like, hey, I'm still getting to know you. You're still getting to know me. So therefore, I have to manage my expectations of who you are. And she had a rough time.
Yeah.
Well,
and the reason I look at, she getting ready, she wants.
she's, I'm in here. I'm in here. Double Dutch. Come on, let her in. Let her in.
Right. And the reason I'm saying that is because, so I had a whole lot more dating experience than what she had. So her coming in, she was already, at a deficit because she hadn't been dating at all. And so therefore, when she and I started, when we initially met, I kind of set a standard of, okay, this should be our expectation because I'm still getting to know you. You're still getting to know me. And so therefore, I'm not going to have this grand expectation of I'm going to call you X amount of times a day. I'm going to be able to text you back right away. All these types of things.
The way her lip just turned a little bit let me know that was the subject.
When again,
Written all over your page.
Because written no.
Line is that I had a proper expectation of, where we were in our relationship. And so imagine if both of us were over the top about our expectation, then it now becomes unrealistic for both people because I don't know her that well. She doesn't know me that well. if I'm being sarcastic in a situation and she don't know that, she can get pissed off and be like, well, he was just an asshole to me today.
So can I just say one thing, though, that I heard you say is that you had the proper view of expectations and she did not, which sounds to me like it was my way or no way.
So here we go. Here's what I
Respectfully.
so there's two things. It's interesting. So first I want to go back to the idea of safe space in the sense that you also have to, like, I was a therapist for about 17 years. And one of the ways that when you're trying to help someone, you're not trying to give anybody the answers, right? You're trying to tell them what you see so that they can identify patterns.
Right.
And they go, oh, I do. Oh my gosh, I've been doing that for 10 years. Like they realize it and then they make the change. You don't change people, right?
Right.
That's the best therapist to me. That's what they do. They kind of help you see the picture better. And so I think when you're in a partnership, there was one time I was talking to him about something that was stressing me out. And I told him kind of how I dealt with it, and he started to tell me all the ways that I could improve the response.
Okay.
And so he's paused and then he pulled back because he said what he realized in the moment was that I wasn't looking for him to tell me, solve my problem. He was trying to, I was just wanting to tell him what I was thinking through a process. And I was getting shut down by all of he was trying to help me. And I was like, this is not helpful. Right. And so he actually stopped and was like, okay, one, let me just step back because are you wanting to just kind of do this? Do you want my input? And I was able to say, I don't want your input with this. I'm just trying to work through what I'm deciding I'm going to do because that's what I decide I want to do. I don't want to critique of what I'm doing.
Right.
And so he just adjusted. Right. And I think in that sense, if we can slow things down sometimes, we can locate that, which you were saying, you should just know. Sometimes if you slow it all the way down, you can kind of see. The same way, like if I'm talking to you about your mom and you're like, every time you're like, and I'm like,
I get twitching.
and I make a little note. And later I'm like, can we talk more? Let's go back to your mom, because you're noticing things. If you try to pay more attention to your partner, then you can kind of see, okay, she's like shutting down. Like, this is not what I'm trying. That's not my intention.
So in that moment, he created a safe space by asking you what you wanted.
He slowed it down. And like, I'm not giving her what she wants. So let me just, or it's not, she's not absorbing it the way that I'm intending it. So let me just fix what I'm doing. And I appreciate that. Like, I felt safe in that space. Like, okay, it's more important for him in this moment to support me than to tell me what to do. Right. And so that was really helpful. Now, to the dating situation. So yes, he has far more dating experience than I had. I was married for 20 years so I didn't have a lot of dating experience. But I do, just based on the people that I know I'm a rare bird. Right. And so for me, knowing...
You were married for 20 years?
In a committed relationship for the 20 years.
20 years.
You were 20?
So I was like, yeah.
You talked about this earlier, Nicole. We were saying he needs details.
Yeah.
He's going to check you on the details.
Yeah.
So he's collecting these receipts as we speak on air. Okay, you're collecting.
You're right.
I'm not collecting receipts. It's me getting clarification. That's what she and I talked.
No, I wasn't. I was married for 19 years.
She and I agreed that us getting clarification, not collecting receipts. It's us getting clarification because then if the scenario comes up again, we're more informed about that scenario as opposed to trying to hold you accountable to.
Right. But the person...
I could better understand who and what you are or what you're... That's the only reason why I was able to pause when I realized when I thought that I was giving her advice is what she wanted. She didn't want advice at the time. She just wanted me to listen. So...
Yeah.
But if I didn't, during those earlier conversations, if I hadn't gathered that information, then I wouldn't know to apply it appropriately.
So going back to the dating, I did not have a lot of dating experience.
Right.
I did know that I was a rare bird just from the people that I knew. And I was like, I'm amazing. Like, what do you mean you still out here dating? We're just having, wait. And so I think that my expectations were unrealistic. I do. But I do think also that he's a pretty effective communicator. I don't think I was used to that in a man, who communicates pretty clearly what his expectations are, what his desires are. So it was a little bit intimidating because I'm normally the communicator, right?
Gotcha.
So I was like, oh. But like, what I realized too was that he had a level of detachment from an outcome. I've never been very detached from outcomes. If I wanted to do something, I wanted to get done now. Want it done. I want to figure it out. Like, let's make it happen. And I think he was like, well, before we make it happen, let's be realistic. So this one time, so we talked all the time during the pandemic because we were both home, working from home. So we had long conversations. We'd just be talking and working and talking and working. And we talk all through the week. So I was used to that level of communication. So the weekend comes, crickets. And I'm like, okay, it's different. All right. And then on the Monday, I was like, well, clearly the energy has shifted. And he was like, why do you say that? I'm like, well, I talk to you on these different days, and clearly what I want me wanting to talk to you, you don't want to talk to me like that, because that's what I'm taking from this big gap in the weekend. So, are you talking to somebody else? So then,
got a whole scissor going on.
and then he was right. Yeah. Well, I didn't even say that. I was just like, where were you? You know what I'm saying? So you disappeared. So it was interesting because he said, okay, so before you sent me I texted him this. So he called me and he said, before you sent this text, what were you feeling? And I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, before you sent me this text and said, clearly the energy has shifted. What were you feeling? And I was like, I felt like I had a bad day. I wanted to talk to you. I expected to talk to you. I didn't. He goes, okay, so why couldn't you tell me? I really missed talking to you. I missed you. I wanted to talk to you. I had a bad day. And I was like, because I'm not trying to be all, extra with that. And he's like, you think that's more extra than clearly the energy? He needed you to redirect that energy, basically. Right. And so I realized, like, for me, it would have been like very simpy to be like, busy in my. So I was just like, oh, he's not even gonna check for me. I could tell him
I hear you on that, because it felt like in the dating world that I've experienced lately, like guys want to hear that kind of stuff, or that level of communication, but it feels like, am I just stroking your ego because you want to hear how much I missed you and I want to talk to you, and so you're gonna give me space so that I can miss you? Like, if it feels...
But is it really stroking ego if that's actually how you feel?
I just deal with some really trashy ass people right now, so I think I am. But
Okay.
But here's the thing, though, what's wrong with stroking each other's ego?
Right, there's exactly that part.
There shouldn't be anything wrong. I think for both men and women, from what I've seen, I think in general, one, if you haven't kind of taken care of the missteps in relationships that you've had in the past, then it's going to continue to manifest itself every single time.
That's true.
And so to me, that's number one. Before you start dating, whatever issues, missteps, whatever has happened prior to you dating, you need to take care of that part first. And so for me, I recognize that like very early on. Now, that had a lot to do with the fact that how I was raised, the household that I came up in, because I was already, probably ahead of the game with most people, because I was raised with both parents, and I was raised with a lot of love from both parents. And so my standard was very high in terms of what I consider good, healthy love.
Right.
As opposed to most people that I was coming in contact with were raised from either a single family home or they were raised from a divorce home. So, but I also understood that because of my nature of being a Sagittarius and in search of reform.
Okay, Sergi, 3 cents.
Right.
We all
And a Virgo. Oh,
yeah. I hate Virgos. Just, you're okay.
So it's the natural curiosity is what, I was intrigued by. So me asking questions and learning people's personalities and seeing and identifying most things that most people don't pay attention to is also, it made me a little bit more unique as well. So those things all combined together, it made for interesting conversations, because I've always understood that I was coming from a perspective that most people probably weren't going to approach the dating world in. And so with that being said, that did make it difficult because people didn't take what I was saying to them for face value. The women that I were dating, just like she mentioned, she was like, well, I don't know if I believe that, because I've just not had a guy communicate the way that he did. But I'm like, I don't have any ulterior motives. There's no reason for me to lie to you right now, because we're just now meeting. right? And so when I started talking about expectations, it wasn't to, just kind of bulldoze and be like, listen, woman. It was really
Fear me. Sometimes we need that, but I'm just saying.
right. But it was really me saying, okay, this has been my experience, and based off of my experience, I'm gonna use wisdom and say, okay, let me kind of set a level playing field to where you can feel comfortable and I can.
No, but the thing is, I didn't look out. Okay, I'm gonna let you go. I'm not right.
So me setting the expectation was really me saying, all right, this is your perspective. This is how you saw it. You wanted to talk to me. You enjoyed my time. You enjoyed all these things. And then all of a sudden I wasn't available. Right. Now, she could have approached that many different ways. She didn't approach it from a consideration of my time, what I'm doing, anything that may have been going on about me. All she focused on was what she wasn't getting at the time when she wanted it.
So what were you doing that weekend?
I don't remember specifically. But no. I actually do. We actually talked briefly because I remember I had just moved, so I went shopping, and I remember on my way shopping, we talked for like maybe 10 minutes in the middle of the day. Now, keep in mind, I'm in Houston at this time, and so there's a time difference as well. And so when it's my afternoon, it's her morning. And so she's looking at it from okay, yeah, we talked for 2 seconds, and then the rest of the day I didn't hear from her. But in my mind, I'm like, all right, we had a conversation earlier. Now the rest of the day is my time. And so, but because we're not in a relationship, we're not there yet, you don't owe me an explanation about what you're doing, and I'm not going to expect an explanation.
That was very difficult because if you
Because you had two different ideas of it, obviously, at that time. Yeah.
expectations. My expectation was if we have so this is what I'm saying. If he tells me, wow, I've never met anybody like you before. This has been the most connected I've felt in forever.
Right.
All these things. For me, then that means if this is unique to me, that's all that I'm seeing from my vantage point.
Right.
From his vantage point, this is a possibility. This looks very promising. I got 3 or 4 people that I know that I go on dates with, that I'm going to continue to go on dates with, because I don't know what this is yet. And I'm like, how could you still, after seeing that sign, go hang out in the dark?
Unicorn, I shit out glitter and sparkles, and I lay cupcakes.
Right, and I couldn't, and like, I'm being honest, like I could tell you, oh, you're the only one for me, and still date these people in Houston or whatever, but I'm not gonna, we're not there. Right. So if we're not there, and I was like, well, what if I was out here? He was like, that would be your choice. I don't worry myself about what you're doing because we're not there yet. It's very different.
Very high level of maturity.
I know. I was
So how early in your relationship was it that this took place? I mean, are we talking about month 1 or are we talking 1 year?
It was months that we were,
okay.
I'll say a tug of war because, and I think that, again, men and women, I've seen it go both ways. I've seen men that want the commitment right away, and I've seen women that want the commitment right away. Now, for me personally, that scares me because, and the only reason I say it scares me is because, again, you don't even know me that well. And so why have you decided now that you want to be in a relationship? So to me, it just seems more like possession as opposed to you're just into me that much. So I'm more on the side of get to know each other, get to the understanding where it's mutually beneficial for both of us to continue to go on this journey. Because again, if you find out 6 months down the line, all of a sudden, I may only take a shower 2 times. You know what I'm saying? Now
that would be a problem.
but again, most people don't approach it that way where they're thinking about the long term. They're not asking questions and they're not looking at experiences that are going to help them say, is this really a person that I need to be in a long-term relationship with? Does this person enjoy the things that I enjoy? Do they like going out to dinner? Do they like going out to live music? Do they like traveling? Do they have a passport? any of those types of things.
That's important.
Yeah.
If you haven't figured out any of those things, but then all of a sudden you're ready to jump in a relationship with this person, then you've done both of y'all a disservice because you don't know enough.
But do you consider it jumping into a relationship, or do you consider it maybe that a person doesn't choose to explore multiple options at the same time and that they just choose to be invested in getting to know one person?
So again, to me, if you're only getting to know one person and that's your preference, that's fine. But that sounds
Better than my preference. That's what I'm saying.
it sounds like a relationship. It sounds like a relationship without the relationship, right? Because now you're saying, well, I'm only getting to know you. You're only getting to know me. So then therefore we, she's all right.
Yeah.
But the reality of it is that now y'all have prematurely created a relationship before even understanding whether or not this is a person that you need to be in a relationship with. And so, in my opinion, people end up getting stuck in relationships because of the fact that they committed too fast, as opposed to taking their time and saying, is this a person that I can see myself in a relation? And fear is the biggest factor of all of it. Fear can destroy any part of our life, whether it be career. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, what's interesting? The other day I was actually reading an article that there's 9 steps of being single. And I think after reading this, I was like, no wonder people think that they're in a different stage of a relationship because they're at step 9, for example, and I'm looking at it says single, but contemplating whether or not it will become exclusive. So you've been dating each other for a while, you've been seeing each other for a while, you're exclusive with each other, but that doesn't actually mean you're in a relationship. And I think that a lot of times, especially when you first meet someone and you're infatuated and everything is amazing, and I can imagine your guys' case that because you were in different areas, so it's a different level of connection because you still miss each other. You're not up underneath each other all the time, so it's easy to confuse step 3, which is literally looking forward to that second date. You've had one date, okay, but you're looking forward to that next date, and so you think, well, if I'm not seeing anybody else and they're not seeing anybody else and we've been out 5 times, we must be together. But no, you're still single. There's still steps to this. There's still conversation that needs to be had, understanding. And to your point, Patrick, just about how often do you shower in a month? I mean, those things, it sounds kind of crazy when you say it out loud, but it really, it matters. And people are so different and they have so many different vast backgrounds. But yeah, the communication of, well, where are we at in this relationship? I can understand why that there's a lot of misunderstanding, especially in the beginning.
The most important thing is that most people are afraid to, speak that truth. And they're afraid because they say, okay, well, if I say the wrong thing, I'm going to lose this person. And my suggestion is that say the wrong thing. If that person walks away, then you've done both of you guys, justice.
That goes back to the safe space thing, because like you said before, you were like, you don't have to put the representative out there. You can just be. And
I didn't like it, but it was honest. I appreciated the honesty. I didn't like what he was saying, but I appreciated that he was telling the truth.
Right.
And the fact that being long distance, she didn't have to. He could have sold the whole plan. Oh, I'm with you.
Right.
And done what he was doing. And so it made me feel like, okay, he has integrity. So once he made the commitment to me, I knew it was real. Just like the moment he told me he loved me, I knew it was real. Because he's not a person who's going to say things. And he didn't say things right away. But so I think that there's feeling safe has to do with, one, being able to be your authentic self, but also to feel like the person you're with is being their authentic self. Because then you feel like, okay, because if I don't feel like you feel like you can be you, then it's hard for me to feel like I can be me.
Right. So, and I think, Bahia, you and I coming out similar situations, married in a long-term relationship, about 21 years together with one person, and now I'm like back out there, or, well, you weren't back out there, but
You're being habitually single.
I'm being habitually single.
Oh,
In this physical
welcome.
date.
the pissy pool of dating.
I don't know if I like this welcome, but okay. But so the point is how is that different? Because Nick and Patrick, you guys have similar situations, like where you guys have dated and you have more experience and you have encountered more people. So how do you arrive to the safe space? How do you arrive to effective communication when you have such differing points of view and reference points.
Well, so, but he had mentioned it earlier when she was saying about the detachment. And I think that when you're single, you have to make sure that you have boundaries and that you're able to detach from certain emotions. And that's not easy for most people. And actually, it's probably the most difficult for most single people because of the fact that they end up in relationships that they should not be in because of the fact that they didn't have the boundaries or they didn't practice healthy detachment. And so to me, what healthy detachment looks like is the expectation. So if you know that you're dating and I'm dating, but we're not in a relationship, my expectation shouldn't be too high to where now I'm putting you in a category that throws off our relationship.
Right.
And that's not saying that y'all end up in this situationship for years, because now you're wasting each other's time.
Right.
But in that beginning stages, when you're getting to know somebody and you're, understanding their character, understanding who they are, understanding conversations to say, does this make sense and resonate with me? Like one of the early conversations she and I had, we talked about our religious background. We talked about our family foundation. We talked about our relationships with our family, our relationships with our children, our siblings, our people around us. We had that conversation early on. And I've seen people that shy away from having those conversations early on. And I'm just like, to me, that's the best time to have all those conversations, right? Because again, do you have a passport? Right. It's so many things you can answer by understanding whether or not a person has a passport.
Right.
You know whether or not they have a felony.
Oh, okay. Or child support. Child support.
They're willing to go on trips. If they don't have a passport, then that's not even an option. Right. So you can understand by certain situations who you're dealing with and take it from there. So to me, building a foundation with the person based off of each other's truths is not a bad thing. But most people, again, they kind of shy away from it because they fear, if I ask these types of questions, then I'm going to lose that person.
Right.
Now, there are realistic questions that you should be asking, and there are unrealistic questions that you shouldn't ask, in my opinion.
Like,
now, an unrealistic question to me.
Write these down, Nick. You're reading.
I'm on it. I'm listening intensely.
I don't think that you should be asking a person their best sex partner. To me, it's a rabbit.
Oh yeah.
But you'd be surprised.
I don't even think I want to know. I don't know that I'd really
because it's
care to know.
It is me.
It is you.
You'd be surprised. People ask those types of questions.
Oh, it's.
Or they ask it in a way of, "Am I the best you've ever had?"
Oh, no, that's set up for failure.
That is slow.
But again, people ask those types of questions.
But I think some questions that people ask like that are not really questions that, like, I think we had this conversation. This is perfect for safe spaces. We're watching a show. And I was saying that people sometimes seed doubt and insecurity. They seed it. Meaning, if somebody says, "What would you rate me?" Now, that's not a good rate.
Right.
What would you rate?
RATE.
Yeah. What would you rate me? Now, that's not something you should ever ask anybody to do. But if you do, if that person is asking you to rate them, then clearly as their partner, you know they're needing some reassurance about.
No, don't answer the question.
My point is, the first thing you should say is, "Oh, 10 out of 10, 11 out of 10, 1,000 out of 10. You're my only one." Right. If you know that
stay away from
if that
right, it's a setup.
But I'm just saying, no woman should ask that question. But if she did ask that question, then the partner, clearly it's like, okay, this person is feeling some kind of insecurity. They want to be reassured. That's the thing that clearly, why would you ask somebody to rate you if you thought they're going to say -5? You're not going to do that. So
yeah,
it makes sense to be like 10 out of 10. Oh, what? Wow,
you've got potential.
You're off the right. Well, generally, but I had a friend of mine dating this guy. He wined her and dined her. He exposed her to all kinds of beauty and art and all these things. She was a choreographer. He was raved about her choreography, all this stuff. Slowly in the relationship, he started to say, you're a lot plainer than the women I normally date. So there's that. You'll see, which is shocking because you've been telling her she's beautiful all this time. So now she's like, okay, trying to adjust. And then it's like, why you should be confident in your own dancing. Like, why are you looking for me to reassure you? Like, I resent the fact. And so that is it's seeding unsafety.
Right.
Because now I'm not on a strong foundation of what you think about me or what I thought you. Right. That's intentional and it's abusive, in my opinion.
But that's a switch up though. That's not, to me, someone that is overly complimentary at the beginning of a relationship, and then all of a sudden they eventually start, well, when you going to go to the gym? Why you eating that? You know what I mean? To me, that's right. That's like a switch up. That's not even the same category as asking inappropriate questions. If you start a certain way and all of a sudden now you go from being on 10 to why you in my space, then that's like a whole nother conversation that y'all have everything, the infatuation has settled, and now y'all at reality, and now you realize I can't have a 5-minute conversation with this person because y'all don't have anything in common. I can't take this person to my business gala because of the fact that you gonna wear Chucks instead of you know what I'm saying. So to me that's a whole different.
Can't trust her. Can't trust her.
So realistically, the unsafe questions are things that could just totally go left, and men and women, we just need to have wisdom that we hear a certain question, we should be like, you know what?
And you shouldn't ask a question that if that person did answer in a way that you don't want, you would be devastated by.
But people do it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm telling you.
And they always say don't ask the questions you don't want the actual truth to also.
Exactly.
If you can't handle the truth, don't ask that question.
Most people can't handle the truth.
That part.
Most people can't handle the truth. And again, therefore, you're putting your partner in a unsafe scenario. But the reality of it is if you answer the question, then they may not like your answer. If you don't answer the question, then they're going to think that you're trying to withhold information. So one or the other is just a bad scenario altogether. And so you'd be better off just avoiding it. Hey, let's talk about this movie that we watched.
That we paid for.
Then it feels so superficial, to the point of, you don't want to ask certain questions because it's not going to be beneficial to the growth of your relationship. But then it's like, if you keep it so surface level, then how do you dive deeper?
I don't think you can dive deeper. You just have to be intentional about what you're diving. Like talking about our religious backgrounds is really a very interesting and robust conversation because we both are pretty solid, and what we believe, but we're open, right? And we don't. It would have been hard for me if I were to tell him about my religious background, for him to be like, Kyle, you going to hell. I don't know. You're not going to be, or something extreme.
Right.
It's much better to learn that now than we're bonded. And then all of a sudden we get to the point, you're like, okay, so remember the plan is everybody's going to be baptized in this way. And it would have been like, what?
What are you converting?
Right.
Oh, I wasn't aware.
That happened to a friend of mine right before her wedding. They were talking about their joint religion. He was like, kind of like, well, I'm not really into that. And we'll raise the children with both faiths until right before the wedding, where he was like, well, we'll raise them Catholic, and then when they get to this age, you can introduce, the Bible. And she was like, oh, no, literally called us, this wedding is off. I can't, this is not right. So,
wow.
So they should have depth conversations about that.
Yeah.
And again, I think the switch up happens quite often, right? Because people pretend like they're okay with certain things at the beginning. And then eventually, again, when the infatuation settles, now what used to be cool, you have a problem with it. Right. You know what I mean? And so that's why I'm just like, you have to be careful as you're dating to pay attention to those things. And sometimes it's almost like you have to be intentional to really show who you are authentically, as opposed to trying to dummy it down because of the fact that you're like, oh, they don't need to know this. So, well, no, they really do.
Right. And that goes back to you saying that you need to be in a healed space. Like you have to be healed and ready to go. Exactly. So what advice would you give to people who are entering relationships, who are in a relationship that might be a little rocky or whatever? What advice would you give to curating a safe space, or how to mend that, grow that? What would your advice be?
The other day I was watching it was like a little meme that was like, what is it that they were asking men, what have you always wanted but you've never gotten in a relationship? And it's interesting because I asked him that question, like, what do you need in a relationship? that you haven't historically gotten. And I think that in the very beginning, when you start to talk about what's most important to you, what's most important to you in a partnership, what are you most proud of in your life? What makes you the happiest? What makes you the saddest? Patrick, when we first got together, he had like this list. I don't know how many things was on that list. We would ask each other questions off the list.
Okay,
right?
I love it.
But he would say number 7, and I'm like, okay, like what makes you cry? Or number 8, what are you embarrassed about that nobody knows, right? And so we would kind of send these back and forth to each other as we got to know each other, and we still do it sometimes.
I love that.
I'd be surprised to know about you. I was like,
Do you still have that list? I need that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is this something you may have? Can I Google it?
Yeah, you can Google it. You can just send relationship or dating questions.
It was good. It was good for us because
Yeah.
we both thought deeply about the answer. And sometimes we had to be like, I'll come back to you tomorrow. Sometimes we say, I'm not ready to answer that question, but I'll answer that question and give me a week to think about it.
Gotcha.
But I think the most important thing is to, one, know the value that you're bringing to a situation. I think if you are waiting for that person to lead everything, I just want to be in a relationship, so I'll be whatever you want me to be in a relationship, I think it's really trouble. I mean, I've seen people, even a friend of mine who literally changes her voice. I never heard her around a man before. So I was sitting with her and she gets on the phone and she's like, and I'm like, what is happening? What is going on? Like, I was like, is this what we doing? Like, I was shocked. I'd never seen her. So I think she was trying to create a softness that wasn't really authentic for her. And I was like, so when he gets to know you, you're like, so what's going to happen, So I think knowing your worth, knowing what you bring, knowing that you're looking for someone who's not going to complete you. You're looking for somebody who's going to really match you well and can help enhance your desire to grow yourself. I don't think they can even enhance you. They can enhance your desire.
Compliment you.
Be better. Yeah, I want you to, I just need someone that's going to help me grow.
Gotcha.
I think anything that's not growing is deteriorating.
Yes.
I want somebody who wants to grow himself and also can support me in my growth. I don't always love it, but I like that it can.
I like it. Patrick, real quick, what's your advice?
Yep, my recommendation is heal. I mean, you can't expect to go into a relationship unhealed because it's tough anyway, regardless of what anybody wants to admit or come to the realization. If you're not healed, any little thing can be a trigger for you. And so if that all of a sudden becomes a point in that communication where I've said something that I don't even realize is a trigger for you. Now, all of a sudden it could be a turnoff only because it's a trigger that I didn't know exists. Gotcha. So to me, number one, make sure that you're healed and healthy to be in a relationship. Number two, healthy expectations and boundaries. The better you understand what the expectation is between both people, if y'all can agree on that, then the better opportunity you have for y'all to continue to move in a good direction. And then last, just make sure y'all on the same page, and it's what both of y'all want. We both understood that our end game is marriage. Some people don't want marriage, and they get into relationships with people that don't want marriage. If you don't want marriage, find somebody else that doesn't. If you like dogs, find somebody else that like dogs or has dogs. Don't get into
cats.
Right, or cats, or whatever it is. Make sure the person that
they gonna love Smokey.
Right. But in truth be told, that was one of the things that I did. If I've met women that have been completely gorgeous, but for me, all of a sudden I learned that she has a dog. I'm like, okay, I can't talk to her because I'm not gonna ask her to get rid of her dog. But I know if we together, I'm not taking care of that dog. I'm not coming home early because you get stuck somewhere to take care of the dog. So again, just me understanding that, I'm like, you know what, I'm not. But again, most people aren't like that. They get into situations where they see the person has a dog or a child or whatever, and they're like, oh, that's not a big deal until it becomes a big deal. Right. And now you're in that relationship, y'all living together or y'all married, and you know the things that you already didn't like are still there. Now what are you gonna do?
Now you're resentful.
Now you're
all those things
for reasons that you could have, avoided if you just, that's not my thing.
He said one day,
do you think
you're the dog?
Do you think people talk do you think people talk those things off as not necessarily red flags in the beginning, but they call them like soft flag, a pink flag, a pink flag?
I don't know what type of flag they want to call it, but ultimately, if you know that you have an issue with it, then again, it's something that you need to consider. Me and her, that's one of the biggest things that I enjoyed about our early conversations is that both of us, we were able to get on the same pages about what we wanted and about how we saw our future. It aligned. I wasn't changing my answer to make her feel comfortable. She wasn't changing her answer to make me feel comfortable. It is what it is. This is where I see myself. This is where she sees herself. And does that align with where we're going? And it did. And so that's where we decided to continue to move forward with our relationship, as opposed to in the past, I've seen, and I've even had it happen to me where we're building a relationship, but we go in two different directions because you want one thing and I want something different. Yeah. You know, and I actually, one more thing.
He said one more thing.
What each other's roles in that relationship is going to be as well. If you're the type of woman that wants a guy to be the breadwinner, find you a guy that's already a breadwinner. Or
not that he's somebody else's breadwinner, because that's when it's like, oh, he be the breadwinner in that family. I want him. Right.
Exactly. And if he's not the breadwinner, does he have a solid plan to become the breadwinner? Right. And then, but if you're not the type of woman that needs a guy to be the breadwinner, then what is your expectation of the guy? Does he at least just need to, be employed? Does he need to have certain
minimally
whatever? And again, this day and age, we have to start thinking about that, because you have women that are extremely successful, and there are men that are able to be with an extremely successful woman and not feel intimidated because they can hold their own down. They may not be able to fly her in a private jet, but he can take her on a trip. I mean, you got a Spirit and Southwest out there.
You got the Amtrak. We had this conversation. It was funny. One of the things that he said to me was, "What is most important?" Because we're like, more likely to see you in Target or Saks. I was like, Target. Right.
Right. There you go.
Not that you don't know where to wear Saks, but where you most likely to spend your time. Right. To give you an understanding of kind of what you do. And also, one of the things that he said too, we were talking to him. He was like, we've determined if you're the person, or for you, are you the kind of person who wants someone who has good credit, solid job, travels, lives life, right? Or do you want someone who saves everything for, financial security, who has investments, right? Yeah. But they don't really do a lot of stuff, but they're being responsible. Right. And it was interesting because, the way that I am is I'm never going to destabilize my life. But I'm going to live my life. Right. I don't live to work. I work so I can live and do my own thing. And so we both aligned there. We're like, okay, we're solid because we want to live life, but we're not going to be irresponsible. Right. But I don't need someone who's going to be like, we can't go on that trip because we got to save for our retirement. And I was glad that we had that conversation because if that was his expectation of me, it would have been a constant arguments because I'm out. I'm going. Right. And vice versa. We both were like, do you believe in girls trips? Do you believe in boys? Right. Like, because we wanted to make sure that we were going to be okay with the way we live. And I think that if you're like, no, my wife better never go anywhere. We can't. That ain't going to work. Vice versa. My husband better never be out with his friend. Like that wouldn't work. So those types of questions that people don't want to ask because they don't want a person to feel like they're trying. Just put it out there, what you expect and what you need,
Nick B, what are your takeaways from today? Because there was a lot of stuff.
There's a lot. I mean, my biggest takeaway is what Patrick said of heal. Make sure you come to a relationship healed and whole so that you can have open conversation to create that safe space and then decide if this is a healthy relationship for me that I want to be in. That's what I took away.
I love it. I think mine was the expectations up front and the open communication where you can authentically communicate as you are. And if it don't work, it don't work. And at least you know in the beginning. So where can we find you guys on social media or anywhere else?
You can find me at the Black Parent Initiative most days.
Just come on the office.
Come on by the office. We do a lot of wonderful things for kids, but also visit Bahia, honey.
Yes.
We got some stuff that's going to be happening in the near future. And stay tuned for Trap Step class
Step aerobics.
We're gonna do something
Yes.
fun. We're gonna make it happen.
I love it. I love it.
Thanks for doing that.
That's where she can be found. Patrick, where can we find you at?
So IG is Shaw IU6, and Crown Consulting is really just my email. I'm finally getting to the stages of actually launching the brand. I've done work here and there where I wasn't doing anything full time because I'm corporate America for job, and so now with me, pushing the Crown Consulting, the Glory in You, it's really starting to become official. Where
We do some men's work and men's.
Yes, we need some men's safe spaces.
for men.
There we go. There we go. Nick B, where can we find you?
Yes, you can find me on Facebook or Instagram under Nicole Lee Blah. That's Nicole with an H because real Nicoles have H's. Or you can reach me on any of our Dirty Roses platforms. So what about you, Leela Ree? Where can we find you?
Oh, I'm Leela Ree on all platforms, every single one of them. It's LEIGHLARIE on every platform. And you can find us at Dirty Roses Podcast on every single platform. And of course, like, subscribe, and follow us on YouTube and every other social media podcast platform there is out there. And we'll continue this conversation later on social media. Find us because you got to join this conversation. Yes. It's good. Thank you. We're going to have some safe spaces.
It's been great. It's been great.
I love it. Thank you guys so much. And we'll catch y'all next week.
Vocal